All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine and colleague, Linda Okupski. So, Linda is a proud wife and mom of three awesome kids. One of the nicest people that I know, but don't let that fool you because she's a shark and a business killer. We love her. And she's living a life by design, going back and forth from her home to doing business at the beach home and just really living a life of many's dreams. And I'm sure that it didn't always feel that way. But now that everything's coming together, it's just awesome to see all the growth. And Linda is the top agent in her company and county, selling over 30 million in sales volume, almost all by referral, which is even more incredible. And then the biggest thing and my guilty pleasure, why I really wanted you on here, is that you're building an awesome investment portfolio. So, Linda, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me and asking me. I feel really privileged to be like one of the first few guests. So,
Yes, we wanted you in the top 10. And talk to me about your background, Linda, and then let's just jump in.
well, let's see. Graduated college, met my husband at college. We've been married for 30 years. Um, Joined corporate America kind of by mistake. Didn't really network back in the 80s. I had a girlfriend who worked for a headhunter, landed at a job. It sprungboard into a sales opportunity at one of the world's largest commercial printers at the time. And traveling, running around, it was mostly a male dominated business. And I found success quickly there as a salesperson. A lot of times, salespeople don't know they're salespeople until they accidentally become one. And that's really what happened to me. There was no plan or design. And when you start doing something that you really love, it's easy to sell it. And, the next thing is finding success. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what happened in my career at R. Donnelly and Sons. I worked there for 11 years. I'm a traditional kind of gal. And when we decided to start a family, it was a hard decision to walk away from what was a very lucrative, fun, and exciting travel based career to really deciding to kind of pack it up, leave it behind, and raise my three kids. And that's what
Wow.
I did. So I'm not just sounding like a hero there. Part of it was, commercial print was like on its way out. The
Hmm.
internet was finding its way in.
Hmm.
Not that the company and business wasn't transforming, but it seemed like a good time as well. So I didn't have to lick my wounds too long in missing my life in corporate America because, of course, now I had these three wonderful babies to nurture and help them become great people. So that's a work in progress. They're in their 20s and late teens now. And I realize that that job goes on forever. So
Yeah, but
just
I
because,
do want to give you a shout out on that, though, right? And especially as somebody that's a younger father raising a young family. You look at people that everything appears like they're doing the right thing. I know you're an awesome mom from our conversations and everything that you pour into your kids. So it's definitely paid off. So I just wanted to give you
oh,
that
well,
shout out.
thanks. Well, thank you. Yeah. And they seem to like me as they approach adulthood. So I take that as a win.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
so then how long did you were you a stay-at-home mom for? Which is, I mean,
Uh,
that's a double full-time job.
yeah, that was, I would say 10 years, probably 10, maybe 11 years. But not just raising kids, and this leads into my success and kind of stepping into real estate. I was always active in the community because I wasn't ever the kind of person to just sit back and let other people do it, right? Whenever you're in a volunteer mode or a role somewhere, it's always the top, the same 20 people doing the 80% of the work for
Yep.
everybody. And that was always true for the areas that I got involved in, whether it was church, the kids' schools, organizing fundraisers, getting involved in the community, whether it was a race or a ribbon cutting ceremony, and just being out there and bringing the kids and supporting the local community and building those relationships. And I've been in Hunterdon County now for 22 years and, moved out here not knowing anybody. And so when I
Hmm.
think of the referral business that I've developed through real estate, I would say 85% of that is local grown, Hunterdon County, roots thrown down in 2000, and just never intending to build a database or a network of family and friends out here. But just by being engaged in your community, I was able to springboard what ultimately became this next career as a salesperson in real estate.
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask you too. How did you get to that decision that you wanted to get into real estate sales? That's the route that you wanted to go, because I really want to talk about your VIP network and how you grow that. But how did you get there?
You know, it's funny. A really good friend of mine had started a business a number of years ago that he ultimately sold to IBM, probably 10 years ago, because it was right before I became a realtor. And he had called me up. He's a good friend I met down at the shore in beautiful Harvey Cedars. And he said, "Hey, Linda, I like your style. I like how you approach things. I can tell you know, from your career, just talking about business in the past. I need someone to come and develop a sales force for me at my company. And I want to tap into people like you. I want moms that have left corporate America that were rock stars, or dads that are now staying at home, and they've been home for 5, 10 years and they don't want to go back to corporate America because maybe that animal's changed a little bit for them. But we want to offer an opportunity to people like that who have the brains, the skills, the talents to be self-motivated, to find solutions to problems. And they don't want to just do it at home anymore, volunteering for events or bake sales or things like that. So he had asked me to help build that sales force.
Cool.
And that's really what got my brain started. Like, you know what? I am ready to go back to work. And, you know, this gentleman who's a good friend thought highly enough of me, not as a friend, but as a professional, to ask me to take on this role at a company of his, which was his baby that, again, has since sold to IBM. And I was like, oh, okay. No imposter syndrome, right? I feel like if he thinks I can do this, maybe I can go back into the workforce and do something as well. And my goal to leave the workforce initially was to stay home with the kids. And I still wanted to do that because I had young teens, right? And you worry at every stage of life that they're at. And someone close by is important. I wasn't going to be getting back on planes and packing an overnight bag to do what I wanted to do. So I reluctantly went into real estate only because I didn't know enough about the sales aspect of it. And I thought that maybe it wasn't not glamorous, but maybe a little bit used car salesman-y.
Yeah.
And I had my own personal realtor who found me the home that we bought in Annandale. Was amazing. And he was kind of the unique, different image of what I was thinking. I'm like, well, if I can be like David Witt, that's a win. So I interviewed a couple real estate companies. I settled in on one because I felt like the training would be good there. And he worked there. So that was kind of an easy get into the door.
Okay.
So that's really kind of how it started. And I was Rookie of the Year the first year.
Imagine that, right? A little more imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And, you know, really the kids went K-8 at a local Catholic school, which we really loved. And our plan all along was to send them to our public high school. And my oldest said, I really want to go to St. Joe's in Metuchen. I'm like, oh, that's far. Yeah. I thought we were done paying tuition. So that's really when I said, okay, I have to do something because once he went private, the other two were going to follow whether they wanted to or not. And, that's what happened. So all of a sudden bills that we weren't anticipating were there. And they, you know, sometimes private high schools can look a little bit like a college tuition. Yeah. So especially when you've got 3 in there at once. So that it was money driven as well. Boredom, you know, a little bit boredom, wanted to use the mind a little bit, and I needed the money.
All right. So now let's fast forward, right? So now you're one of the top agents in the entire area. You're crushing it, selling homes when a lot of people are still struggling out there right now in this challenging market, right?
Yeah, and for sure.
Mostly all by referral. So how did you get to that point so quickly to where, what percentage of your business would you say is by referral?
I would say at least 60%.
Okay.
I do get a lot of business through open houses. I'm a huge open house person, always have been since the day I started in real estate. And to this day, I can't wait for Sundays. I can't wait for Saturdays sometimes, depending on what kind of property it is. But yeah, back to your referral question, it's a big part of my business. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of that unpredictable part because you can't measure it or you can't anticipate it. So that's a little nerve wracking for people that are a little bit more type A than myself who need
Mm-hmm.
to understand where's that next dollar coming from. I don't always know. I've just been blessed with a phone that rings a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So then how do you go about staying in touch? I want to get a little bit more into your processes, right? Because a lot of people, what I've found is they have really big networks, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't do anything to tap into them. Or they just don't have the organizational skills or the commitment, the dedication to continue to tap into that network. How do you stay organized with just knowing that you have to touch this many people, or you need to check in with John or Joe or Sally? What's your method
Right.
to the madness, if there is one?
Um, a lot of my referrals are my friends. Sometimes people don't do well doing business with their friends. I've never had a bad experience with a friend. I always put it forward to them, whether I've sold their house or they're asking me to sell their mom's. They need to treat me like a professional. And if they're unhappy with anything that I'm doing, or they see something a little bit differently than I do, please speak up. I take criticism well. If, right, us as successful salespeople, if you can't take criticism or rejection, you're in the wrong
You're
business.
in the wrong business for sure.
So that's like the first rule. If you're sensitive, go on the other side of the transaction because you can get kicked in the teeth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So really staying in touch and connecting. And how do I do that best? I think I do that best through social media, through whether it's like something as silly as making sure you're wishing everybody a happy birthday. Make sure you remember who your friends' kids' names are, where they went to school. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they just finished at Gettysburg already. Knowing, and you have to have that kind of brain too. You can't just take notes and refer to notes, right? Some of this has to
Very
just
true.
come naturally, right? Thanking them for their son's service because you saw they just joined the ROTC program at school. All those little opportunities to say hello, to say thank you, to offer assistance. One of my favorite stories was I was heading home from somewhere, and this is a number of years ago, and it was when social media was really starting to boom. And a good friend of mine who's referred business to me, a lot more business since I found his dog, because on social media, it was, oh my gosh, Zeke is missing. He's been gone for hours. And I knew where he lived. I'm like, oh, let me scour a couple of the outlying neighborhoods. And sure enough, I find the dog. I bring the dog
Wow.
home. And I've been the local hero ever since. And I have to say, I've probably gotten 10 client referrals from him.
From finding the dog.
From finding
That's
the
awesome.
dog. It was just another opportunity to, you want to be everything to everyone. I had a girlfriend call me once. We had the same kind of minivan, and she's like, I can't open the back vents. How do you do it? And you know how to open the back vents on the minivan. I need a plumber. I need a chimney guy. I need somebody that can come get that dead deer out of my yard. Who can take my broken air conditioning unit that's going to get rid of the freon, right? Be that resource. Be the first to raise your hand and get in front of people and bring value. And that's really
Yeah.
if you are a trusted resource for little things, you are easily a trusted resource for big things.
Yeah, and that's one of the key takeaways I had from the conversation we had a couple months ago on the panel was you have just such a get it done personality,
Mm-hmm.
whereas so many people either they get to a certain level, they find a certain level of success, and then they feel like I don't do that anymore, or I
Right.
won't do that, or I don't even want to talk about that. But I
Yeah.
think that must speak volumes to why people will refer you so easily because they know that you're the get it done person. Like same thing with me. People know if they reach out to me, they can get connected to anybody in a trade that they want
Yep.
same day. Like if we have somebody that needs a dumpster right now, we can drop a dumpster in 2 hours with a text message.
That's
There's
right.
a lot of value in that.
For sure. And a lot of people don't think that they need to get their hands dirty. Well, you don't have to, but maybe you're not going to have an extra zero after your income. Get your hands dirty, roll your sleeves up. I'm staging a house. The cleaning lady is short a lady. Well, guess what? I brought my scrub brush, my bucket, and my toilet bowl cleaner. And I was there for 4 hours cleaning baseboards and toilets and putting shoe polish on faded floor spots and, whatever it takes. I mean, it's a team effort. When you invite a team in to help grow your business and your team is hurting, guess what? Step in.
Yeah.
The clock doesn't yield.
Yeah, and I do believe that, right? Like some people may say that there has to be a boundary, and I do agree there needs to be some boundary.
For sure.
But if you've signed up to get them from start to finish in a transaction, and for some reason they just can't get there, or they need assistance,
right.
By you stepping up and going the extra mile, you're doing what it takes to get the job done. So
well, and you know what else that does? I've gotten stopped by people that work for different companies that maybe I've stepped in to help out with, and they're like, another realtor has never done what you do. So I don't do it for the accolades. Guess what? Next time when they only have X number of space in a truck and they can't fit everybody's furniture, guess who's getting their furniture? I am.
There you go.
Right? It's not by design, but it's how it works, right? It's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And it's the same thing with nurturing relationships with other realtors, right? You want to, kind of collaborate with other professionals and be that trusted associate, whether they work for Brand X or they work for Keller, whomever it is, right? You want to be one of their favorite go-to realtors to do business with. And when there's 10 offers and maybe yours isn't the best offer, but they don't know that guy from Adam and they know you, the chance of you getting to the finish line with them in their eyes is way better than some dude coming from Hoboken trying to sell a house in Hunterdon County for $5,000 more. They might go for the more reliable realtor relationship. So That's another thing that I do is really try to nurture those relationships, whether the relationship or the experience was a good one or not, whether you had to carry them across the finish line or you ran across together hand in hand, right? Sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but that's another really important thing to me is maintaining those colleague relationships.
Okay. All right. I want to pivot now, right? And this is the really selfish part of the podcast because my big passion is wealth building, right? And I didn't even know this until a few months ago when you shared it with me, but you've been growing quite the portfolio. So I'd love to talk to you about your wealth building journey and what got you started on that journey and what you're buying and where and why.
Well, it was kind of a two-pronged accidental position. And my husband is my partner in that aspect of the business. I will say moving to Keller Williams was the first trigger. Owning my business and the opportunities that owning your business through a company like Keller offers opens up your eyes to different opportunities. And that was the springboard for me, whether it was investing in the building, investing in title, investing in insurance, right? All of a sudden, here are these other ultimate income sources by investing in these tools that are going to help me. How am I ever going to retire, right? We're not getting a pension. We may or may not get Social Security. And is that enough, right? We live kind of large lives with our kids and our families and vacation homes or travel or whatever it is. How are we going to maintain those lifestyles into retirement? And my husband, who isn't quite retirement age, but could be at any moment, we were thinking, how do we do this? And watching how my career has transformed over the past 10 years as a realtor, in a way, it's a little scary having so much of your personal wealth and income tied to just real estate.
Yeah.
But, a key there is diversifying, right? So you own a building. So you own a house. You own an investment property that's maybe a vacation family house as well. But now what's next? Airbnbs, VRBOs, all those kinds of short-term rentals have gotten really popular. And those were really what triggered the next buying cycle for me as far as investments go. It's mostly short-term rentals up in Vermont. We're a big ski family. We share that enthusiasm with the kids as well as other family members. brother and sister-in-law and all their kids, and they're fun to go out with. And COVID helped too, right? Everybody was home working from their bedrooms, and okay, let's go rent a house for 2 months and let's go live up there, because we were all cocooned in. We weren't missing anything, so that was a big part of it as well. COVID really helped kickstart that Vermont. So I think we're up to 5 doors up in Vermont.
That's awesome.
And then we've got 4 local rentals, long-term rentals here in northern New Jersey, plus the house at the shore. So I think there's a few more. I think you can carry it. You may know 8 or 10 mortgages personally.
Yeah.
And again, people think, oh my God, she must be rich. No, right? You've got a percentage that you're putting down. We're leveraged, right?
Yeah.
As long as we keep working and we keep filling those places, you're getting your income source from regular rent. The short-term rentals have been amazing. The only thing you have to plan for is the hot water heater went, there's a leak and it's frozen 10 feet underground. How are we going to get that? All that stuff. So it's a little bit crazy. But there's some important things to keep in your head or learn and talk to somebody that's been doing it before you go and dive into the investment world. But kind of set some goals. What are those goals, right? My big picture was retirement, but you can't just do it on your own, right? My husband's got a brilliant mind and takes care of a lot of the dirty work and heavy lifting as it relates to this. He educates himself. He's listening to podcasts all day long. My dog has never been happier because he'll walk for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Listening to a podcast.
Just consuming content. Exactly.
That's right. So knowledge is absolute power in this business. Building your network. The most important thing and the most important decision that Scott made, my husband, was hiring a property manager to manage the short-term rentals. For as much as you want to do it yourself and you do the math and you're like, wow, 30%, 35% really adds up. If he had to do what she does, long distance, those properties would have failed.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time for the property that we have in Florida that's Airbnb, that's the only one that I have a property manager on it. And it's the best investment that I have.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know about it. It's obviously we check the monthly P&L. We make sure that everything is rented, but we're not getting the calls. We're not getting the messages, and it's pretty much hands off. And I just want to drive the one point home, especially for the people that are listening to this podcast episode that are newer in the business or that have recently found a lot of success. And they think that that's just going to keep going that way. You have to start buying real estate. So the craziest thing, we've had this conversation before, but when I got in the business and went full time, and then when I took over the team leader position and I was consulting with agents that were in the business for 10, 15, 25 years, and I would ask them about their investments, their portfolio, and a lot of them would look at me like I was crazy. And I was like, wait a second. You've been selling real estate for how long? And you forgot to do one thing, and that was buy property. And I'm not saying this to shame anyone. I'm not saying this to deter anyone from starting. It's just an encouragement, a kick in the pants. You have to start now, because all you're doing is you're making your clients rich, especially when you give up the really great opportunities. And I personally believe right now, especially with the lack of inventory, everyone should turn into a hybrid agent. You should be able to go out on listing appointments where it's a distressed situation or it's a situation where somebody needs a quick sale and have a second offer besides just putting a sign in the ground. You have to be creative and have different strategies. So I think what you're doing is just phenomenal. Obviously, I'm doing the same thing. And I really hope that some listeners that are going to listen to this take the initiative and the drive. And if you don't know how to do it, you just have to, like you said, get around people that do.
Yes.
And take the bull by the horns and take action. And the one thing that I always tell people when they say, oh, well, what happens if somebody stops paying? What happens if you have roaches or mice or whatever, right? you can't die from owning real estate.
Right.
So if
Right.
I can't die, right?
There's
And I
always an
know,
exit. There's always an
yeah,
exit.
I mean, unless like the roof fell on my head or whatever, but like, chances are nothing tragic is going to happen unless you make a really ill-informed decision. So for
Right.
those of you that hear what Linda said about the short-term strategy, the only thing that I would suggest, make sure you do your due diligence
For
with the
sure.
town and the municipality that you're buying in. Talk to a local top realtor if you're buying out of state or in a market that you're not familiar with, just to make sure. But you have to take action. Like, don't just sit there and watch your savings erode away in a 401k in the event of a crazy financial situation or collapse. And don't just let it sit in the bank. It's just eroding in the bank. So
Hmm.
that's incredible. So where do you want to take it, Linda? I mean, you bought a lot in the past couple of years, right?
Yeah, I think in 2 years it's been 10 properties.
Are the kids going to get into? Oh my God, that's phenomenal.
Um, well, my husband's, we have a recent college graduate in our hands who's actively looking for his corporate America job. But in the interim, my husband's like, please go to Vermont. I would love for you to go up there and manage these properties and, just kind of get
Great
the kids
opportunity.
involved. That sprungboard him. He's taking his last exam. Is getting his real estate license as
Oh
a.
wow,
Yep. So we're going to grow the Okupski team.
that's
So
awesome.
that's not his goal to become a realtor, but half of us didn't really grow up
It
wishing to
wasn't
be a
my goal
realtor
either.
either. So we'll see where that takes him, but he's really excited. He passed his first test yesterday. You have to pass 2 tests before they pass the class and then go take the state exam. So that's what's happening today over there.
That's
But
great
yeah,
news.
getting the family involved. I hired my daughter, who's a marketing major and economics major at University of Georgia. She's my digital marketing manager this summer. And I have to say, working with her has been really nice. She's a professional and she's talented, and she's taking my social media and my print campaigns to a different level. I finally have a newsletter, which is kind of goes back
Amen.
to the first part of our conversation. And those are things that it was easy she's here in my house 24 hours a day. So I don't have to be polite and not talk to her at 6 a.m. and wait for her to come to the office. I can go wake her up
Yeah,
so it's been really a nice experience to share that with her as well. So it is kind of growing in a way into a family business. So we'll see how that all plays out. But I think from the investment standpoint, as well as from a sales standpoint, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some other Okupskis in the business in the years to come.
I could see it. I could see the Akupski dynasty and the family
Yeah,
office
right.
coming
Too
together.
bad it's that last name. I don't know. That's not like splashy, but
You could come up with something that's catchy, I'm sure.
that's right.
All right. So, how are you preparing for the upcoming opportunities, right? There's a lot of distressed properties that are going to be coming on the market. Are you preparing for any of that? Do you look for mostly on MLS deals? How are you finding these?
I've been working with an investor for a couple years. They're kind of like the ugly, I call them the pretty girls of my portfolio. Um, and those are really distressed. Like, I don't want to go inside that. It's
Yeah.
so distressed. Um, and we are partnering with him, and I have 5 or 6 tax foreclosures in addition to the portfolio that we talked about. So I've got like a 2-year cycle waiting for that to cycle through the foreclosure process and all of that. So then I'll be selling those as well. And those will just be flips, not flip like let me fix it up flip, but let me clean the title. Let me pay off any family members, remote cousins who may have a claim to the property, and then ultimately sell those. So that's kind of a forward thinking plan for us that is new. And I'm funding that 100% through my IRA, 100%.
Wow.
So, take $750,000 and you're partnering with somebody that you trust and that knows that business. It's tricky, being at auctions and things like that. That's not my side. I'm just throwing some money at it, and that's a different way that a lot of people may not have the opportunity to do, because that you really have to find someone that knows that business well, and he's been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah,
So
that might need to be a second podcast
yeah,
with
that's a
something.
whole different, I'd love to
Yeah,
get him on
yeah.
because he's a really neat person. Um, but getting ready, keeping the eye out. You were kind enough to invite us all up to your property in Mendham or Chester,
Chester, yeah.
that you just completely gutted and flipped at a really great number, not without the bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah.
But those are the lessons that we as realtors need to take advantage of, learning from your rough spots along the road. Not because, like we do with our kids, we want everything to be sweet and nice, and therefore they don't learn their life experiences by falling
Yeah.
down, right? Because we
Yeah.
picked them up all the time, right? So it's not like you don't want to make a mistake to learn from it, but it's really helpful to put yourself out there and engage with people that are doing things that are maybe outside of your comfort zone, and see what the excitement is. And okay, that didn't take more than $25,000 of my personal wealth because I partnered with these two people, and we had that guy that was the contractor. Whatever it was, right? There's different ways to skin the cat, and just knowledge. Again, knowledge is power. And
Well, and what I'm also finding now, Linda, is that you say knowledge is power, right? And because you consume podcasts, I consume podcast content, your husband is absorbing himself in this, especially once you start to learn about the power of owner financing, creative financing. So right now, I'm currently negotiating a very creative deal that's got a big chunk of owner financing. We'll talk about it once it closes.
yeah,
But just knowing that there's other avenues out there available other than
right.
just traditional financing, because I think that one of the main hiccups that people get stuck on is they think that they have to put 20 or 25% down on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case.
That's right.
There's so many other avenues out there. And like you said about the IRA funding, for all my past colleagues that are hopefully listening to this podcast, I mean, if you have money sitting there in IRA or 401k, and it's flat, stagnant, or going backwards,
All right,
now
make it
might
work
be
for
the
you.
time to watch a YouTube video or read
That's
a book.
right. That's right. That's right.
That's
For
awesome.
sure. Yep.
So what advice would you give to realtors right now that are maybe younger in the business, or those that just never took the advice that we were graciously given to start?
It's all who you surround yourself with. And I said the two-pronged approach to really what's triggered my investment was being in the right place at the right time. And that wasn't just accidental, right? It took me a long time to shoehorn myself out of my prior relationship and move over to Keller. That to me was surrounding myself with the right people, a different mindset, a different set of opportunities, and being open to understanding what those are. You may not be in a position where you're the top producer in the office or even top 10, but that doesn't mean it's beyond your reach. Just understanding what the opportunities look like and being brave enough and talking about it openly with your spouse and or a parent, depending on what your situation is, and do it with someone that it can help make it fun and less scary, and ask advice. Open your mouth.
Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time. If you're just cautious by nature or nervous
Mm-hmm.
by nature, just partner up with somebody.
Yes.
I mean, we tell people openly on the investor mastermind calls that we have, if they have a deal and they can't take it down for whatever reason, financing or fear or whatever the case may be, just reach out. And if it's a deal, the money's going to come.
Right.
As long as it's a healthy enough deal. So,
and you just have to do your due diligence, know where you're buying. To your point, if it's out of the area, hook yourself up with a trusted, accomplished realtor, and use them often, right? Because that's that relationship building, right? It's not just a one-off. They're going to want to, oh gosh, I really enjoyed working with Greg. He's coming around the block again. I'm psyched. This is coming on. That's when the phone rings early. Hey, this is coming on the market. Are you interested before it hits?
mm-hmm.
You develop your opportunities by the nature of the relationships that you build.
Awesome. All right. A couple final questions as we wrap up here. So a lot of people love this. I love it as well because I'm a habit and routine guy. But talk to us about how you're managing all this stuff, right? Because you make it seem it just flows, right? But
Yeah.
you have a lot going on. So how do you go about your daily structure, your morning structure? to keep all the plates in the air?
Well, I'll say my most important thing has been I need a lot of rest, so I make sure I get it. Um, I can't say I'm not a morning person because if I get up at 6 o'clock, I can start my day at 6 o'clock. If I get up at 8 o'clock, I do feel a little bit of a pang of guilt because I know that there's so much to do, right? Not just do task oriented, but opportunities. If you're sleeping or you're laying in bed and you're watching TikToks and they're not all about real estate, you're missing opportunities, right? So if you need to feel motivated to get up and get out of bed. And that's what gets me out of bed is I feel like there's an opportunity to be had and I may not know what it is, but if I'm in my house and I'm not dressed and I haven't gone to the gym or taking the dogs for a walk, I'm not ready to start my day and find what that opportunity is. I'm an optimist by nature. I'm not a grumpy person. I'm not grouchy. I'm not usually sad. So that helps me get through my day really easily because I'm not burdened. I'm happy to take on other people's burdens, but I shoulder them well.
Yeah,
So
that's a great perspective, though. What's the opportunity for the day that you're missing by not taking advantage of starting your day? That's awesome.
yeah. And so I'm not the most organized person. I still keep too much in my head, which I'm starting to
Same
try
here.
to
Same
to
here.
develop systems. Well, when you get to be 15 years older, your stuff starts to fall through the sieve, right? And it doesn't happen a lot, but it's like, whoo, that could have been a close one, right? So the systems need to be in place, and I'm starting those, and my daughter's helping me a lot with those, as is my husband. He's a very organized person. So to me, getting up and tackling the day and putting yourself out there and being present is the most important thing for me. Getting on the hot sheets, right? That's what they call them on Garden State MLS, right? Belong to as many MLSs as you can and understand and know how they work. Go on there and know the inventory. If you don't know the inventory, when you're in the shop, right, or you're getting gas, right? In New Jersey, we pump our, we don't get to pump our own gas, right? But, inevitably you're going to see somebody in the car over that and first thing they're going to ask us is what's going on in the real estate market. And you can say, oh my gosh, did you see the house 3 doors down from you just came on the market for the 3rd time in 4 years, right? You can't say that if you don't know the market.
Correct.
So
Very
again,
true.
be that valuable resource for even silly information. Like, well, what happened to that house? Oh, you know what? They had a bunch of chickens and something happened. And next thing you know, they had to pull the house, right? So know what's going on. And it may not be glamorous. It might be silly, but it's the kind of thing that people, when they see you, they're like, she knows everything. So, be present, be out there, see people, know your market. So you have factual information to share because now you're that knowledgeable resource. Again.
All right. One more. Let's talk imposter syndrome.
Oh,
Since
yeah.
we talked about that
Yeah.
before we started recording, right?
Yeah.
And you admitted that, you've suffered from some imposter syndrome and not
Yeah.
feeling like you were either good enough or have arrived already,
Yeah.
even though you have this wild level of success. So there's a lot of people that will live behind imposter syndrome their whole entire lives, right? What have you done to step out of imposter syndrome and embrace the fact that you are a rock star?
Well,
I mean, you're on a billboard, Linda.
they're not free.
Yes.
I think the first part of dealing with imposter syndrome is having a strong sense of self, right? If you're going to be a salesperson, we said it before, you can't be weak in this business. You can't get your feelings hurt easily. And if, there's plenty of time to go home and cry and lick your wounds, but don't spend too much time doing it because you're going to miss the next opportunity, right? Have your thick skin. So what I think, and this really stemmed from my first career, was when are people going to realize that I'm really not that good? And some of it is maybe your level of what you measure as good is way up here, but the rest of the world is kind of over here.
Yeah, or
So
maybe even over here. Yeah.
Or here, right?
Yeah.
So you're already leaps and bounds above because you are getting out of bed and you're showing up and you're brushing your hair and brushing your teeth and you're looking good and you got your cute shoes on and your lipstick and you're happy and you're bringing it. You're already 10 steps ahead of the guy behind you, right? Because you know what to do. You just get up and you work your day. be proud of your hard work and appreciate your success, and learn how to take a compliment. If you can't learn how to take a compliment, and it's not just because you're humble, like you're really just not good at it. It's a little off-putting, right? You kind of have to be a little bit of everything, right? Be humble, be gracious, be proud. That's an interesting mixture of all things that are well-rounded. How do you get to be well-rounded? Try to unload your burdens. Try to surround yourself with people that aren't taking you down. It's so much easier to be brought down than it is to be brought up, right? So surround yourself with people that are better than you. So that's not always easy, but it is kind of easy to break away from maybe the bad influences in your life, or spending too much time with that high school buddy that maybe is involved in stuff that is taking away from your success, right?
Yeah.
Make those choices wisely, how you spend your time.
Yeah. What I also finally realized, it took a while, but you really start to you have to share the wins, right? So one of the key drivers for launching the podcast was my coach kept telling me, it's like, Greg, you have this magic genie, this thing you won't take the lid off and let it out, right? And share it with other people. And you have to share the wins. And we're not saying to come from ego, but we're not saying to brag and just you're great and wonderful, but you have to share the gift with other people and inspire them, and also pull people up, because you never know who is waiting to hear from you or who needs to hear the message on a certain day to really inspire them to be a better person.
That's right. And something that seems maybe not silly, but something that we've all fallen a little bit away from: show up in the office, because there's so much for you to learn from other people, right? I got Linda Creech down the hall. And if you're down the hall from Linda Creech, you know what's going on in Linda Creech's life, because girlfriend's on the phone all the time and her voice carries. And you sit and you listen and you hear how other people approach topics or deal with something that might be a bit of a struggle. That's different than you. And there's a takeaway in there in everything. So be by people, right? COVID was an easy excuse for us not to do it. And now we've got a younger generation of realtors coming up who, I got up and went to New York every day. I was up and out by 6:00 and home at 7:30 at night, whatever it was, right? That was our routine. It's not the routine anymore. So being present, not just for yourself and your family. And there's another whole podcast, right? Balance of work and life, right? But being present for your coworkers, and don't be stingy with your success. And not, like you said, you're not bragging, but if you get invited to something down at the Keller headquarters and it's a 2-day seminar and you come back with your book and you're like, listen to what they said, and you share that, and people are just like, wow, that's so great, because I wouldn't have known that, or I wouldn't have heard that. Share, and then listen. When somebody's sharing, listen.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the biggest eye openers that I had when I joined the company 6 years ago, I think it was, is that everybody was willing to share openly, and it was an open environment, and it was so inspiring to see that. All right, so Linda, let's put a bow on this. So you added a ton of value to everybody here today. How can the listeners get in touch with you for all their real estate needs out in Hunterdon or down by the beach or whatever they need?
Yeah, well, I'm easy to find. If you can spell Okupski, there's no apostrophe in there. Don't tell my mother that. She thinks I married an Irish-Polish guy all mixed in one. But I'm easy to find. LindaOkupski.com is my website. My digital marketing assistant's updating that for me this
sounds
summer.
Fancy.
Yeah, it's a great website. Easy to find me, easy to see what's bought, sold. The pretty girls aren't on there, but I'm going to do an investor's corner on my website soon, so you can really see what does a tax foreclosed property look like.
That's incredible.
So social media, I'm easy to find. Call me up. Go find my billboard. My phone number is big on there. Call me anytime. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
You got it. Thank you so much, Linda. I greatly appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.